More. Tune in to Radio Dixie 91.3.
Weather brought to you by Stephen Wade Honda Mazda and 24-hour air conditioning.
Okay, here's your temperature forecast for October 29th. The Greater Dixie area, 58 highs and 28 lows. For Zion National Park, 52 highs and lows, 18. And for Brant Hill Village, 20 for the highs and -7 for the lows. For Radio Dixie and Radio St. George, this is Dennis Mattinson.
This is Henry Fogel, inviting you to join me for Collector's Corner, which is heard every week on this station, for the first in a series of 4 programs devoted to the great Russian conductor Kirill Kondrashin. These are all going to be live performance recordings, and they are very dramatic. On the next program, Mahler's 6th and Beethoven's 8th symphonies. That's on the next edition of Collector's Corner.
Collector's Corner, Mondays from 11 till 1 on Radio St. George 100.3.
DSU students can earn up to $500 with the High Impact Student Scholarship. These high-impact practices can entail studying abroad, career tours, undergraduate research, internships, experiential learning, alternative fall and spring breaks, and presenting at conferences. The first deadline for this scholarship is October 15th.
Are you interested in becoming a volunteer? Paradise Canyon is looking for student volunteers here at Dixie State University. There are no minimum hours required, and Paradise Canyon is flexible with any school or work schedule. For more information, please go to pcs.washk12.org.
Radio St. George is on Twitter, and we invite you to follow us. Post a video and audio from our shows and other quality tweets. Follow us on Twitter at Radio St. George.
Our place on the internet, radiostgeorge.com.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
This is KDXI St. George, Radio St. George at 100.3 FM. And we welcome you to Startup Nation.
Thanks for having us.
Up-and-coming startups, entrepreneurs go face-to-face with proven business leaders and talk funding, innovation, current business trends, technology, and social media's role in business. And now your host for Startup Nation, Ed Tracey.
Hi, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Tuesday, October 29th, here in the great city of St. George, Utah. Home to everything red. It's red. It's red dirt everywhere. Big week, Halloween, Street Fest. There's only 2 Street Fests left, November 1st and December 6th. So make sure you come out. It didn't end in October. Come out. Have a good time. But yes, it's also National Oatmeal Day. Just thought I'd throw that out there. Hannah, DJ Hannah, who does all the news here at Radio Dixie, she comes up with this totally random stuff. It's National Oatmeal Day. Congratulations, all you oatmeal eaters out there. What else is going on? It's getting cold out there. It's getting really cold. I woke up this morning and I was not happy. I thought I was back in New York. It was like 30-something degrees. It was cold. Aside from that, we're just happy to be here. I'm happy to be here because I have a virtual legend here in the studio. So it's funny. We're talking. It's Taylor Doose, everybody. The great filmmaker and producer, independent filmmaker and producer, Taylor Doose. The Doose. Doose, as he's known to his friends. That's why I have to call him Taylor. He just won a great award, which we're going to talk about. But we just found out that he was a DJ here when it was Dixie College.
Yeah, back in the days of Dixie College, before the university came in.
It's now a broom closet where they used to have the DJ booth.
It was a broom closet then, too.
That's so funny. So when were you here?
I was here from 2001 to 2003.
Okay, and they hadn't gotten university status. It
Not
truly
yet.
was still Dixie College.
Still the college then.
And do you remember the name of the radio station?
KDSC, the disc.
The disc. And what kind of music did you guys play?
It was an eclectic mix of everything the DJ wanted to play is what we got to play pretty much.
Which is awesome.
Oh yeah, it was small because we only had about 3 watts, but whatever you wanted to play was what you came in and played as long as it was appropriate and wouldn't get in trouble.
And I can't do that. If you've listened to the radio station before the show starts, which is 2 of you, it's classical music, which don't get me wrong. I love classical music, but yeah. And then, of course, the other station down across the hall here, they play, whatever, alternative rock and roll and stuff. It's a student station. This is more of the talk station.
Yes.
This is more of the educated people.
Podcasting before podcasting was a thing.
That's true. It's true. Now they call that, what do they call it?
Talking?
Talking, yeah. Apparently that's
texting
new.
with vocal cords.
Yeah, exactly. Or vlogs. That's a big thing. We have a vlog right now. We're on YouTube Live. We're on Facebook Live. His parents are watching. They're so proud right now.
No.
Yeah, I know.
Well, that cuts about 10 of my stories out that I can't tell anymore. So
I'll tell them for you. So he was a DJ here, and what did you say? You guys used to hang out. Your people used to hang out in the parking lot of where? Harmon's?
At Harmon's, yeah. We had a late night Saturday night punk rock show, and people would come out and hang out in Harmon's and listen together.
Yeah, those days are gone.
Oh,
dude.
long gone.
Long gone.
Long gone.
Of course, back then, what else did they have to do? There
was nothing.
People actually had to talk to each other. Yeah. You couldn't go to the bathroom with your phone or your...
Oh, yeah. There were no cell phones. No. There were no internets. There was... No.
Yeah, at some point I realized that I should not text while I'm on the toilet because my legs go numb. I have to crawl out of the bathroom, and then the people at Walmart are mad at me.
So, kind of awkward, that army crawls. You're just pants around your ankles.
It is kind of bad. So it's fun to watch for some people, though.
Oh, yeah.
So you are a filmmaker.
I am.
And how long have you been doing that? You have quite a history of things. You were a bouncer.
I've been a lot of things.
Great. I've heard this. What was the name of the bar you used to bounce at?
Lucky 13.
Lucky 13 in Salt Lake.
In Salt Lake.
Is it still there?
Oh yeah, it's super popular. It is. I think it's 10 years running now. The #1 hamburger in Salt Lake every year.
Really?
Yeah.
We should go.
Right? We should.
Do they have happy hour?
No. It's Utah. There's no happy hours. Every hour's a happy hour there.
It's happy hour all the time. It's eternity happy.
But getting back to your question, I would say I started being a filmmaker when I was about 8. And for Christmas, my parents got me a little Sony Handycam camcorder. And
there you go.
I would watch. There was a show on. I remember all these things vividly because they're those weird moments that stick out in your life. But there was a show on the Discovery Channel Saturday morning called Movie Magic.
I remember that show.
Yeah, and they would show you behind the scenes on movies. And I remember they did an episode on stop motion from The Nightmare Before Christmas, and they showed how you could do it with a camcorder. And I was like, okay, let's do it.
That's when all those shows were coming out. How it's made.
Yep.
The candy show where they showed how all the candy was made, the behind the scenes of everything.
Yep.
Everything.
Yep. Yeah, so my parents got me a camcorder for Christmas, and I was one of those kids. Never had siblings, and
that you know of.
And growing, we don't talk about those ones
exactly.
But so I was alone a lot. Like I had friends, but not really close friends. So, and I've always been a perpetual night owl. So all night, every night, I'd stay up in my room till 2, 3 in the morning by myself making stop motion animated movies.
Did you ever have a flip phone? One of those flip video things?
Oh yeah. I had everything. All that stuff. That's all I ever wanted was, making stop motion and then figuring out how to take 2 VCRs, play one to record on the other, but do the audio out of the camera. So I was doing my own Mystery Science Theater things and doing these comedic dubs of movies.
That's awesome. Probably the closest I ever did anything to that is when I discovered all my dad's 8mm reels, and I had a video camera, and I got a white poster board, and I showed it there, and then I videotaped it onto another so that I could have all of these videos. That's the extent of my filmmaking career.
Yeah, those are the innovations, though. That's how people get started, and that's how the next Steven Spielberg looks at something and goes, "Okay, I can videotape an 8mm. Why not?" That'll work.
And now look at it. Everybody's got TikTok, and you have a smartphone that films better than
cinema cameras are sitting in your pocket with a calculator.
It's crazy.
On them. They're great.
Have you ever made a video with your phone?
Oh yeah, I used phones on every movie set we work on.
So Taylor was up filming some stuff at the DeFiore Center. If you've never been up there, you should go. It's a great little gallery. Lots of classes, lots of stuff up there. But you were filming for this short that you won an award for.
Yes.
And doing the stop. What do you call it?
Time lapse.
Yeah, time lapse. And I accidentally walked outside, and his partner in crime, Jonathan, who helps him, Jonathan Nelson, right, was filming. He's like, "Hey, Go back inside.
Go away.
Get out of the way. I'm like, what? There's nothing. You're just standing there. So yeah, it's interesting to watch how people do all that sort of stuff. Like, and you have lots of toys.
Yes, lots of toys.
You do
Lots
have
of expensive toys.
Lots, man. Lots. That's awesome. So you've been doing stuff for a long time.
Yeah. Professionally, I kind of started when I was about 16. I started getting jobs with working on movie sets, interning, stuff like that. And it was from birth. I always knew I wanted to be a storyteller, and film was just the way I wanted to tell stories. And I was lucky enough at 16, 17 to start getting on actual film production sets with actual crews. Yeah, it's done
cool.
Professionally. And so that drove me when I was 18. I was like, all right, film school, that's all I want to do.
That's awesome. Now, is that what you did when you came to Dixie?
It is. That's why I came down here. The film program down here was absolutely incredible compared to anywhere else in the state.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
But, my first semester, it was kind of laid out as the first semester, we're going to do pre-production. Everybody's going to get a department. They're going to go in that department. We're going to write like an actual movie. Second semester, we're going to go film this movie. And then summer break, we're going to edit it together. So when you come back next spring, we're going to show the movie and then start the process over. And it was like, this is perfect, because most film schools, it's sitting there listening to movies, watching movies, finding out why movies are technically made the way they're made and what they're trying to say. And it's like, that's great. The theory is wonderful. But the minute you step on an actual film set, nobody cares if you have a world full of theory in your head. They're like, cool. Make it look nice. Right. Pick up a light, move it over there.
Exactly. That's awesome. Grab that, go stand over there.
Yeah, exactly. But after my first semester, the whole film program fell apart, and I was lost without a rudder. And so I'm sitting there just thinking, okay, you moved from Salt Lake down to St. George. You know nobody. You came here for one thing. That's gone now. What do you do? Radio. That seems like a logical choice.
Yeah, so get rid of everything visual.
Yeah.
And get behind the microphone where you sound really attractive.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
I sound great. I have a great face for radio.
You do.
Thank you so much. So you did that. And at what point, was this something, I'd imagine like anything that you love, you don't really make money at it in the beginning. You just do it because you love it.
You don't make money at it on a professional level. You don't make money at it. The only people making money...
Steven Spielberg.
Even Steven Spielberg would tell you he probably doesn't make money for the things he's passionate about. Right. He gets paid for the things he's going, okay, here's a paycheck. Here's how to work the system in this way so I can make money to do the thing that I actually want to do and love.
So funny.
Yeah, it's a wonderful business, but it's a business. And a lot of artistic people don't have a business mind.
Well, isn't that kind of like anything artistic? If painters, sculptors, musicians, how many starving musicians? And in fact, the term starving musician, you hear it all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're out there doing what you love, but you don't treat it as a business. And if you don't treat it as a business, you make no money.
No. And that's always that hard part, is the people with the money want to make more of it. So they look at what's popular, what's trending, what's in, what's now, and they're not going, oh, this is really important. This is an artistic thing. This is speaking to the soul, and all these people are going to get a lot out of it. They're going, Marvel movies are popular. Let's make another 700 of those.
Let's make one more Spider-Man with a different guy.
Yeah, which is fine. They're great. I love Marvel movies. They're
like DC
so much
does
fun.
With Superman.
Exactly, yeah. But those to me are the movies that make money.
Sure.
And then you can go for the independent route that are the movies that actually speak to your soul and are about something.
Sure. But hopefully those end in something productive or financially rewarding.
For sure.
But you do it because you love it.
Exactly.
And we'll get a chance to look at one that you did, which actually is the one you won the award for, the Raven Award. I know I make fun of this award because you walk in, it's a bird. It's a big black bird. So, and I don't know the history behind that. Docutah has been around, 10 years?
10 years now.
And you got the audience choice for short film.
Yep.
For your Once a Broken Cowboy, which will show about our a local celebrity, Matt Clark, who at 17 years of age, was paralyzed for the rest of his life by an automobile. I fell on him.
Fell on him and dragged him about 500 feet. Yeah, Matt's one of those inspiring people who, no matter what you want to do, you look at him, and he lived in this world where they said, all right, you're 17 years old, you can't walk again, you can't use your arms again, you can barely do anything. Why don't you just curl up and die? And because you have no use to the world. And he's one of those people who just said, no, I have art within me, and I am going to let nothing stop me. And he figured out a way to make some of the most incredible large sculpture that anyone has ever seen.
Yeah. If you've never seen his stuff, it's all around town. You'll see some of these really amazing horses and just amazing pieces of art. And he did a big exhibit in May. I think it was May. At the DeFiore Center. And some of them are still on display up there. These big, he just takes junkyard stuff and he turns them into all sorts of things.
Yeah. Well, and that's his whole philosophy is taking things that are discarded that everybody else would say, oh, this is useless, and making them something beautiful.
Isn't that kind of what filmmaking is? I mean, you see something that nobody else sees.
Yeah, and that's what I love about filmmaking. I'm like, you take a book, you take even something like radio, you take music, and it's an interpretation of the world around you.
Right.
Film is just the most visual.
It's your interpretation. And hopefully people see what you see.
Yeah, and that's what I love about film is I can take a story on a page and everybody that reads it's going to see it differently. But film, I get to take it and see it the way I see it, the way I interpret it. Then add music, add colors, add lights, add all these things to be like, awesome. Here's my version of this story.
That's great. I'd imagine this isn't your first award. I mean, you've probably gotten some awards for some things.
There's been a couple. To toot my own horn.
Right, well, that's good, though. Toot it, baby. Toot away.
No, it's funny because it's always the ones that you're the most proud of that seem like nobody takes notice of.
Right.
And once in a while when things get noticed, I actually had a short that we did a couple of years ago now that I probably put into 30 festivals and didn't get into any of them. I was like, okay, well, this is a bummer. Like, I really love this thing. I poured my heart and soul into it. And it was this little horror musical thing. It was really bizarre and wonderful. But it was about 6 months afterwards, I got an email from this film festival that was like, we're doing a special one night only of Friday the 13th Part 2. Can we show your short before it? And I'm like, I didn't get into your festival, but now I get a private screening, essentially? That's better to me than being in a festival.
Well, and getting into those festivals is probably very similar to, so you're wanting to get into these festivals and you have to get in front of a board that basically selects these, and they may not like what they see. So it is very subjective in that regard, and I'm sure there's a certain degree of who you know with a lot of these things too, but you won an award that wasn't based on what the judges said. It was based on what everybody that was coming to the festival, which to me speaks volumes, because these are the people that are coming to see all these pieces. It's their favorite.
Oh, yeah. And that's always, stuff like that is the most touching, because it's not based on these people that have all these experience. They're looking at all the technical little merits, and it's the people that are paying money to come to the festival to see hundreds of movies sometimes. And they're saying, of all these movies we've seen, yours impacted us the most and we enjoyed the most. And it's like, oh, okay, I can step away happy now. I did my job really well.
Yeah, not the guy that's been making films for 40 years that's judging it because it's 1/8 too red.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a clock in that scene that shouldn't have been there. What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was even with this. We started showing it to some professionals that we know, just like getting opinions, getting thoughts of how we were still in the editing process to critique. And they would say to us, everybody had different opinions, but it was always just like, oh, well, this and this and this I would do differently, but overall it's good. And it's like, but you're not us. You're not the one making this.
So, and I don't even, did you intend on being in the film festival in the Docutah? No. So Docutah is Southern Utah. It's put on, Dixie State, I guess, has a huge hand in it. I forget the gentleman who's founded it.
Phil Tuckett.
Oh, Phil, that's right, Phil. Nice guy.
Yeah.
And next thing I know, you're filming this thing out in the backyard at the DeFiore Center. You're going over to Matt's house. Matt has this awesome studio at his house and builds all these amazing pieces. And, like any good artist, he sees junk and he turns it into beauty, you know? And so, and then next thing you know, I hear, oh, Taylor's going to be in the Docutah. What? I know him.
Well, this was the weirdest because I've last count, I've been doing this officially, professionally for 6 years now. And I think we've done just shy of about 35 short films, 15 music videos,
awesome.
Commercials.
Music
like
videos.
Oh, everything. You name it, we've done it.
I got to see some of these.
We're close to a feature film under our belt many times over, but not quite there yet. But this was supposed to be a Facebook post. That's all it was. This was supposed to be a little Facebook post to say, hey, Matt's got a show. Come check it out. So we just happened to be down here getting some footage.
Right.
Met Matt, went to a studio, put it together. The whole thing from shooting to final edit was about 6 hours.
Not a lot of time.
No. When you talk to filmmakers that have been working on documentaries for...
You're going to read a book in 6 hours.
Yeah. You've got these documentary people that are like, I've spent 10 years making this. You spent 6 hours. It's like, yeah. But that's the thing is, to me, it was that first time in all this time that I realized that it wasn't because overnight success or anything like that. It was, this is 6 years of work culminating in, I know how to do this really well now.
Right.
So I don't need to overthink it and overdo it and do it a million times. I just need to get the pure, just condensed version of this story out there.
Well, that's kind of what happens, when you start something new. You want to do everything by the book, or you want to do just so. You want to be technical, like you're saying, and it's just feel it, just go for it. Use the force.
Exactly.
Use the force.
And that's the thing. You can overthink anything to death, and sometimes it's when you're doing something like this, it's supposed to be a throwaway. That's when the best magic comes out because you're not overthinking it.
Right. And there's the beauty right there. Actually, why don't we show this real quick? So this is entitled A Broken Cowboy.
Once a Broken
Cowboy with Matt Clark. Anything you'd like to tell us about it before we throw it up on the screen here?
I mean, I think we've gone over all the basics of where it came from. So
I have a cameo in here, so be looking for me. No, I don't.
We tried to cut Ed out.
Yeah, you did a great job. I'm nowhere to be found. In fact, they cut me out of these YouTube videos at the radio station. They hear my voice, but no face. All right, here we go. Once a Broken Cowboy.
My early life, my big dream was to be a cowboy.
Yeah, it gives you a little taste of it.
Yeah, how long is it?
It is just shy of 4 minutes.
It's nothing, really.
It's really, it's one of those, though, that if you watch something and you're sitting there watching your clock going, how is this only 4 minutes? It feels like 30.
Right.
That's been one of the biggest compliments I've got on this is everybody's like, wait, this is 4 minutes? It feels like it's 30 seconds.
It really draws you in. I mean, and to know Matt makes it that much more special because he has no use of his legs, very limited use of his hands. He welds and builds this, every single piece of art with these gloves that are specially fit with tools because he can't really use his fingers.
Yeah, no, not hardly at all.
Nope. I mean, he just, aside from lifting them up, that's it. I've never seen him ever been, and they are hardened hands, this guy is hardcore.
Yeah.
But just the nicest guy. And he'll tell you, man, if you're complaining about not being able to do something, get a life, buddy. Look where I am. Anybody can do anything.
And that's, in the making of this, it's been really inspiring to me personally because it's one of those where I'm like, I have nothing to complain about. I have full use of my arms and legs and brain. And if I'm complaining because I'm sitting there like, oh, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough this and that, it's like, you have more gifts than a lot of people do. Yeah. So make it work.
Yeah, buddy. He's something else. And how much time did you say you put into that, putting that together?
About 6 hours is all.
Nothing really.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
I mean, I've seen people take longer to make quilts.
Oh yeah,
so So obviously you've done a lot of stuff. What would you say is one of your favorite pieces that you've done over the years? Because you've been doing this. I mean, if you've been doing it since you were 8, 10 years old, you're not that now. I'm not going to tell everybody how old you are. So you've done some stuff over the years. Do you have a favorite piece?
I mean, it's always the next one. The next one's always my favorite. Whatever I'm working on, I love. But, I look back to those early 8mm videos I did in my bedroom by myself. And I don't have them. I couldn't find them to save my life. But, making little clay monsters and making Godzilla movies and zombie movies. And
the time-lapse ones?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I just like doing these things. And it's like, once I went to film school, they were explaining angles and how they work. And I was like, I was doing that when I was a kid, but it was just instinctive. I didn't know technically I was doing it.
What was the movie with Steve Carell where he takes the little mice and he does...
Dinner for Schmucks.
Oh, yeah. That's a true story, actually.
Yes. That guy's amazing. The real guy is so awesome.
So stupid. I guess that really makes sense. It's always the next one, because you already see it in your head. You probably already know what you're going to be working on next. You just have to take the time to make it happen. You know?
I mean, I've been, and I'm one of those people where if I'm writing a script or anything, most writers will tell you, like, outline it, get all the story beats down, get this, that, and the other. And I'm one of those people who I don't do any of that. They don't do
you shoot from the hip a lot?
Well, for me, when I'm script writing, especially, I like to put a character in a scenario, back them into a corner, and then go, okay, now what? Like, I've done that with a couple scripts where it's like, as I'm writing it, like, words are coming out of the computer, and I'm like, I didn't know that was going to happen. I thought he was going to go left, but he went right. What's down the right corridor? I didn't know that.
Well, do you have a particular theme or a particular style of film that you like to do?
I mean, for me,
murder mystery.
I love all genres.
Midgets.
I love midgets. Midgets are always the best. No, for me, I love everything. I love, comedies, dramas, but the heart and soul of everything that is inside of me always comes back to horror movies.
Horror.
That's awesome. This is my favorite. It's one of those, everybody's always like, why would you make horror movies? They're so scary. They're so awful. They're so this, that, and the other. And I was like, but if you really dissect a horror movie is just this combination of every genre.
One of the favorite comedy movies I've ever seen was The Shining.
Yes.
It was hilarious. We're going to come right back and we're going to talk about a movie that you and I watched together, Santa versus the Devil. It was the funniest stuff ever. We're talking with Taylor Doose. We're going to talk with him some more here. We'll be right back with Startup Nation. Stick around, everybody.
Next time on The Pulse, modern medicine has blurred the lines between life and death.
They seem to be biologically alive, but they're never going to wake up again.
This can be a really difficult situation for families.
She started moving around, doing things that dead people aren't supposed to be doing.
The space between life and death.
The Pulse, Saturday mornings at 11 on Radio St. George 100.3.
All those big boy radio stations in town have their own radio van. Well, thanks to Chris and Eve Fee and Ryan at Red Desert Motorsports, Radio Dixie 91.3 has its own radio vehicle. Our golf cart needed some batteries and brake work, and Red Desert Motorsports fixed us all up. They also service, sell, and rent ATVs, UTVs, side-by-side, and other off-road toys. Red Desert Motorsports, 117 West Telegraph, a super sponsor of Radio Dixie 91.3.
My son had a drinking problem at college. I'm glad a friend suggested Al-Anon family groups. If someone's drinking troubling you, you might be surprised at what you can learn in an Al-Anon family group from people just like you. Call 1-888-4-AL-ANON or go to alanon.org.
What's up, sports fans? I'm Easton Smith with your weekly Dixie State sports update. Starting off with the men's soccer team, who will play at Adams State this Friday at 3 p.m. and then at Colorado State Pueblo this Sunday at noon. Over to the women's soccer team, where they play New Mexico Highlands at home this Friday at 7:30 p.m. and then Colorado State Pueblo at home again this Sunday at 1:30 p.m. Volleyball team takes on Western Colorado this Friday at 6 p.m. at home, and then Colorado Mesa this Saturday at 6 p.m. in the SAC. Now over to your Dixie State football team, where they look to continue their win streak when they play Shattern State this Saturday at 1 p.m. for the homecoming game. For more scores, news, highlights, and more, Tune into Radio Dixie 91.3. What's up, sports fans? I'm Easton Smith with your weekly Dixie State sports update. Starting off with the men's soccer team who will play at Adams State this Friday at 3 p.m. and then at Colorado State Pueblo this Sunday at noon. Over to the women's soccer team where they played New Mexico Highlands at home this Friday at 7:30 p.m. and then Colorado State Pueblo at home again this Sunday at 1:30 p.m. Volleyball team takes on Western Colorado this Friday at 6 p.m. at home and then Colorado Mesa this Saturday at 6 p.m. in the SAC. Now over to your Dixie State football team where they look to continue their win streak when they play Shattern State this Saturday at 1 p.m. for the homecoming game. For more scores, news, highlights, and more, tune into Radio Dixie 91.3.
This is Dr. Robert Briggs inviting you to join me this Sunday as I share some of the best sacred music ever written.
This week on Sacred Sunday Mornings, early American hymns of the Appalachian Hills and Pioneers. This Sunday at 8 a.m. and noon on Radio St. George 100.3 FM.
This is Hannah with your Radio Dixie calendar for Tuesday, October 29th. From 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., there is a Southwest Symphony Education Outreach Concerts in the Cox Auditorium. From 12 to 1 p.m., there is Spanish Conversation in the Holland Building, room 477. And from 3 to 4 p.m., there's a Club Council meeting in the Garner Center, Conference Room D. And that's your calendar on Radio Dixie 91.3.
Tune in for Exploring Music with Bill McLaughlin. Weekdays at 5 on Radio St. George 100.3 FM.
We welcome you back.
We're doing the dance.
Here's your host, Ed Tracey.
We are back, everybody, talking movies and the lack of knowledge of social media with Taylor Doose. So, you used to be a bouncer at Lucky 13.
Yes, sir.
How did you end? Just because you're a big guy, huh?
Yeah, pretty much.
Big guy, tatted. You had gauges at one point, right?
Yeah.
You don't wear them anymore, though.
No. I had them about to an inch and a half in diameter, and
that's gotta thin your earlobes out.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Does it grow back?
To an extent, depending on how you do it. I was actually a piercer for 10 years professionally. So
wait, I didn't know there was a profession for piercing.
Oh,
really?
Oh yeah.
Do you have piercings?
Yeah, one or two.
That's awesome.
But yeah, no, I had my ears stretched out. I had full tattoos all over my body.
How many tattoos do you have? You got a lot of tattoos, dude.
Technically, probably like 30-ish.
Unbelievable.
But, at this point, they're just kind of one. They're almost all connected at this point. So.
Do you have a tramp stamp?
No, but I've always wanted one.
I love it.
It's because I want to get something so silly that people are like, what?
I caught a butterfly once that had a tattoo of Cher on its ass. Can I say ass? I guess I can. I just said it twice. You have to be 30-something or older to understand that reference. Sorry, people. For those young people listening to the show, Cher has a tattoo of a butterfly. Anyway, why am I explaining this to the three people that are listening? I have no idea. So, yeah, you got a lot of tattoos. You were a bouncer, and I can't imagine. You're pretty. I mean, when you first meet, you're intimidating. You are a big man.
Yeah.
But you're so easygoing. I'm trying to picture you as a bouncer. Hey, could you do me a favor and sit down? Thank you so much.
No, that was the joy of it. Is like I was working with people that were smart enough to be like, we need somebody that looks terrifying, but can be really nice to people when they come in. And they're like, you fit that bill so perfectly.
You do. I mean, you even sound educated. I mean, if there is a sound that sounds educated, you're not like one of these, hey, I'll break you. Excuse me, sir. I'm communicating with you right now.
I mean, I worked with a couple of those my day. So.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Every other word was the F-bomb and talking about his girlfriend fighting with him and breaking bottles over his head. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, luckily that place never really had much of any trouble. Like the few times there was trouble, it was actually really funny because like something would start happening and I'd very grumpily be like, oh, I have to go deal with this. And by the time I got there, whoever was fighting was like out the door the other way because they're like, oh, they heard you were coming and they didn't want to deal with you. So they ran. And I was like, good, you tell them to stay away. They're like, yes, sir. Like, I'm going to go back to reading my book.
So funny. I mean, I've run restaurants and bars for the good part of 28 years. My whole life, I ran a British, my whole life I've been in that business. I ran a British pub in San Francisco, and my bouncer was just the nicest guy. His name was Johnny Given, fresh off the boat Irishman.
Yeah.
big as an ox. And he could fireman carry me. He'd throw me up with one arm over his shoulder like I was a rag doll if he had too much to drink. And he was just one of those guys. But we had fights in there.
Oh, yeah.
You get these expatriates, they like to fight.
Oh, yeah.
And a couple of guys came in, they were drunk, and they decided they were going to pick a fight with him. And he's laughing because he thinks they're joking.
Oh, no.
And finally, the one guy hits him just below his chin, kind of hits him in the neck, and his face changes like, oh, you're serious. He one-hands him out the door like he was Superman. This guy just flew. And I was like, we have the right guy at the door. We have the right guy. He just took no guff. It was awesome to watch.
That's awesome. That's so good.
I would not be a good bouncer. I'd be like, sure, go ahead.
Go ahead,
whatever
sir.
you want. Take the till.
Sorry.
Yeah, keep the bottle. Yeah, not good. So I just, And you were doing that, obviously, making movies at the same time.
You know, it was kind of a transitionary point where I had been doing that for about 5 years, and my then girlfriend, now wife, Julie, just turned to me one day and she was like, are you going to do this forever? And I was like, I don't know.
We love Julie, by the way.
We do. She's the best.
She is. She has the coolest hair colors all the time. She comes home with new styles all the time. And her thing that she does, I go, you look fabulous.
I know.
Yeah, I know.
Do.
I know. I love her. I love that woman. Probably not as much as you.
Yeah.
But
depends on the day.
Yeah. I've been married a few times too. I know.
But no, yeah, she just was like, whatever you want to do, I will support you 100%. And I was like, all I've ever wanted to do, the only thing that ever made me happy was making movies. Like, I've tried it twice. I failed twice. But I don't want to live a life of regret. So let's just try it a third time. And if it doesn't work, then we'll be done. I'll know forever I'm not meant to be a filmmaker.
Do you have regrets?
Always. But, not regrets as much as...
Like, do you ever get up in the morning or at the end of the night after working on a project and go, I could have been a pharmacist. I could have been an insurance salesman.
I more have regrets of not doing it sooner. Because once I went back, I was almost 32, and it was one of those where I started looking into grants and scholarships and going back to school, and I was like, okay, you're in your mid-30s going up against a bunch of early 20s kids, and it's like, you are going to be an old man, and it never felt that way. Like, everybody always treated me like I was no different than them, no, like, anything, and the biggest thing that I was actually really happy I took about 15 years in between finishing school and then going back and like trying again, I had life stories to tell. I had perspective. I had a voice.
Do you think that the change in technology made it easier?
It didn't, because I was coming at things where I knew all the old technology.
Right.
And then I walked into this room, they're like, oh yeah, none of that exists at all anymore.
Yeah, but you had a base. I mean, you had you started in my opinion, to learn that way makes it so much easier. You started the ground floor and you have a base where some of these guys just come in, like we were kind of joking, but yeah, they're using their phone and doing stuff. And
yeah. Well, that's the thing. Nothing's changed since the beginning of film. Nothing has really changed. Like, technology has helped it advance to make it easier, but it's still just storytelling.
Right.
That's like saying that because we have a Kindle now,
and that will never change,
or Audible, it's any different than a book. It's still like cave drawings, essentially. That's all we're dealing with is cave drawings that now can move really crisp and in 9K and with computers to help them. But all in all, it's storytelling. That's all it is. The tools have changed, but the thing is still just storytelling.
I can always tell when things are obsolete because I can afford them.
Right.
That's usually, I go, oh, you have the iPhone 1? We're on 13, buddy.
And that's, if nothing else, that's been the nice part, is that technology has made things more accessible to people to tell stories.
Oh, yeah.
And it's harder now because you have to wade through a lot more.
Well, and everybody thinks they're a filmmaker.
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean, everybody, you go to YouTube, there's somebody's got a weekly story that they're telling, or they're going around and videotaping people, and, America's Funniest Home Videos, and, laugh tracks and all these different things. Everybody wants to do it, but it's not easy.
Oh, no. That's That's, I'm one of those people who I adore The Rock as a human being, like as an actor, whatever, but as a personality and as a human, he is incredible.
Yeah.
And, he always will tell you, like, don't just be good at what you do. Be the hardest working person in every room you walk into.
Right.
And I subscribe to that philosophy. I'm like, you can be good at whatever. You can be a great filmmaker. That doesn't make you a good worker.
Right.
And so I come at things that way. I'm like, I want to be really good at what I do, but I want to work harder than anybody else to make what I do even better.
Sure.
And, my partner, John, that we've been working together for almost 6 years continuously. He does all my shooting and my cinematography. And
he's good.
He's really great. He is a brilliant young man.
And he still hasn't forgiven me for walking in front of the camera.
I've talked to him. He's okay.
Okay, thank you.
He doesn't hate you that much.
Oh, okay.
But, we prescribe this philosophy of it's never good enough.
Right.
And every project, like, we're going to make it the best it can be so that the next one could be even better.
Right.
And we've run across so many people where it's just, we just want to make it and it's good enough. And we're kind of in that offshoot of, no, it's never good enough.
Right, it's never good enough. And that's what separates you from the guys that are just doing it as a hobby or, and I bring his name up at least once every show. Gary Vaynerchuk. Have you ever heard of this guy?
It sounds familiar.
It will talk about how he made it, doing this YouTube show. And the guy's, he's a New York Jew, Russian Jew. You know it the minute you hear his voice. But he's like, I'm tired of the guys that post hustle and they're watching, Game of Thrones on a Friday night when they could be out there making money.
Yep.
And that's what separates the men from the boys is the guys that are doing it. You, perfect example, you're up till 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning sometimes working on stuff.
Every night.
I come in the morning because we share an office kind of over there for now. And I know you've been there. Probably just your chair's still warm.
Oh, yeah, probably. Well, and that's the thing is, it's one of my favorite philosophies is if you want to be a writer, that doesn't mean you've got pen to paper.
Right.
Like I can be sitting and writing every day from the time I stand up to the time I lay down.
Right.
I'm thinking of ideas. I'm thinking of the story. I'm thinking of how it's going to work. How is it not going to work? And that's how I approach filmmaking is I am 24 hours a day thinking, okay, when we shoot this scene, how's it going to work? Who are we going to cast? What are we going to do? What angles? What lights? What this, that, the other? And, just because I have a camera in my hand doesn't mean I'm not making a film at that point.
Right. So do you have sticky notes all over your bedroom? Notepads everywhere? And
it's one of my favorite parts of the world we live in is my phone is so full of notes and I don't have to have sticky notes anymore.
I still have the habit of carrying a planner. I can't break the habit. I'll get there someday. When I lose it, I'll probably stop using it.
It's always been my problem is I would have pockets full of notes and my handwriting is so bad that I'd go, what does this say?
You can't remember what you wrote.
Any of what this is.
Yeah, I have a few notes like that. I'm like, what? Dog? Banana? What? 14. I don't think that's what that says.
Oh, yeah. I have literally hundreds of notes like that. They're just like undecipherable to anyone.
So, yeah, I get it. What would you say is the longest film that you've ever created?
Okay.
Yeah, and in terms of production, but in terms of final cut, what's the longest? I mean,
we have a movie that is almost finished. It started life as a 2-minute short film.
And how long is it?
And it then
7 hours. No, it's called Roots Part 2.
I wish.
Yeah, right.
But no, it started as just a 2-minute short film idea. And then the more I got into it, got it with the makeup artists and the cinematographers and the actors, and I was like, oh, there's more story to tell. And then it kind of evolved into like a half-hour short. And I was like, okay, it's going to be a half-hour short. It's going to be great. The final edit on it clocks in at just shy of 45 minutes. But with that, we were finally like, okay, we might be able to turn this into a feature. Like if we can film another half hour, but I didn't know if there was story there for a half hour. Then I figured out the story and I was like, okay, yes, we can make this happen. It's going to be great.
What's the premise of the story? What is it?
It's kind of a dark, twisted, it's very reminiscent of The Exorcist. It's a demonology But the basic premise is this guy comes to this Catholic priest and goes to confession. He says, Father, I found something and I need help to know how to proceed. And the priest is like, well, whatever's going on, like, we're here for you. We'll help you. And he starts to explain that he found this baby just abandoned and he doesn't know what to do. And the priest, you have to give it up to the authorities. You have to help it. You have to do all the right things. And finally the guy's like, oh no, like me and my wife have been trying for years to have a baby. God has blessed us with this. Mm-hmm. The problem is I think it might be possessed by a demon and needs an exorcism.
That's every kid, for the record.
Yeah. So it in the end, it turns out that this has all just been a hoax used by a demon to bring the priest and kind of give comeuppance and
really,
yeah. So it's dark and twisted and violent and
is
wonderful.
Is it out already?
It's not, because like when we were going to make it a feature, we were holding back to finish it, but then some problems came up, and so now the final edit is done. I'm just waiting to talk with the music guys and finish putting music, and hopefully probably February I'm looking to try and get it out. So,
what I want to know is, did you use a real baby?
We didn't. We were going to.
You want to use my face for the baby?
But, I
want pan in, and there I am.
After I met you, I was like, oh, Ed could play the baby.
So funny.
It's just those awkward conversations of things like, okay, ma'am, can we use your baby? We're just going to put it in an oven for a few minutes. And, okay, this is going poorly.
You go into the maternity ward. Hey, can we borrow one of those?
Right.
Sure, they've never heard that before, ever.
Sure, never.
No, it'd be new. We want to use it for a movie. All of a sudden, there's cops around in the building. Yeah, good stuff.
No, it's a film. I promise, it's a film. Oh, no.
Awesome. And that took you how long to put all that together? When did you start it? I mean, you're still working on it, so.
We started almost 2 years ago.
It's a long
2.5
time.
years ago, yep.
But that's not the norm. I mean, that's kind of the exception, right?
It depends on the project. Like, I've got one that I'm working on now that I have not written word one of the script, but I have been thinking about the story for probably a year and a half.
Awesome.
And I have the entire thing almost completely worked out in my head. And now it's like, okay, now it's time to start writing and see what it actually wants to be.
Now, do people ever come to you and say, I would like to create a film or I'd like to do a movie, and they just hire you to do their stuff? And if so, is that harder to do because it's not your story in your head?
I've had that. I get hired on projects like that all the time. And it's only hard when you have people that are they want to be very hands-on and have a very particular thing they're looking for, but they're not great at communicating it. So it's like, if you have a vision and we can come to the same page and like, I can bring that vision to life, no problem.
But you got to be able to see what it is.
Yeah. When you say to me, I want an elephant, and you go, okay. So you get them an elephant, and they're going, no, that's not an elephant. An elephant's small and orange with black stripes, and it's feline. It's like, you mean a tiger? They're like, no, an elephant. It's like, okay.
I get
Let's get you an elephant.
Yeah, filmmaking, I've always said, to be a good filmmaker, and maybe you feel the same way, you have to be able to explain the color red.
Oh, yeah.
You know, to somebody that maybe has never seen red.
Well, and that's the thing is most people like don't really understand what a director does, because people think like, oh, Steven Spielberg's a director, so he goes in there and tells everybody what to do. And it's like, yeah, but more than anything, Steven Spielberg answers every question imaginable 10 times a day.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure.
That's really all directing is you find the people that are really good at their jobs, and you bring them in and you say, okay, go do your job. And then every one of them comes to you and goes, okay, does this tie need to be blue or green? You go, green. We go, okay, why? You go, because when he was a kid, he was jealous a lot. And green is envy. Like, oh, okay, yeah, great. And then they put a green tie.
That makes sense.
And it's like, okay, well, this room, the walls are blue, but we're thinking about doing them green and red with purple accents. What do you think? And you go, no. And then you have to explain why it doesn't work.
That's awesome.
a million questions. Why should we put this actor here? Why should we do this? Who wants this? What's for lunch?
My one and only involvement in a film. I don't know if you know who Lori Lyle is. Great lady. She's local. She worked on an independent film that she wrote and directed called Permitted. I get a call from a friend of mine, Jessica Staples, who's a local actress, works here, lives here in the community. Great y'all. She goes, hey, would you like to be an assistant director? I go, well, sure. What do I do? She goes, well, you're loud and we need somebody to yell quiet on the set.
Yes.
I was like, oh, I can do quiet, please. That's literally all I did for 5 days. And
you would be a really good first AD.
And sometimes they had to tell me to be quiet, as you might imagine.
What?
Tell him to be quiet and tell him to tell everybody else to be quiet. That's exactly how it went. Like, he's over there running his mouth. Yeah.
You run your mouth? Never.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, that was it. But it was it's funny like that because you see, you have, as the person that wrote it and is directing it and is producing it, you look in that lens and you see something that nobody else sees, and you're seeing it. And I watch them, they're looking over the camera and seeing different angles and how things are laid out, and they look in the camera to see what it's going to look like when it's there. And it's not done in order like you see in a movie.
No.
You're doing it based on the weather, based on what building you're in, based on what they're wearing, based on who's sitting where, based on the time of day. Yep. And we moved to like 4 or 5 different locations in town. I'm thinking, who would do a film here? Well, they would.
And for a director, you have to have the whole project mapped out in your head so that when somebody's like, I don't know why we're doing this, you can say to them, like, it doesn't make sense now, but once it's edited together and then we use this like 3 seconds for something here, they're going to be like, I still don't get it, but okay. And then they see the final product. They're like, oh, now I get it.
Now, you do a lot of stuff with Jonathan. Do you ever collaborate with other directors or film producers? And
yeah, I mean, I'm always open to collaboration with anyone. It's just film is so much of a personality thing. Right. And, even with actors, like, I would rather hire somebody that I'm going to get along with for a long period of time rather than somebody that's really good. Because, in my opinion, a good director can get a great performance out of anybody. They just need to know how to work with them.
Right.
But you can't change an a-hole. They're just not going to be pleasant to be around.
A monkey dressed in silk is still a monkey. Yeah. Or as my mother used to say, lipstick on a pig.
Yep, lipstick on a pig.
Who are some of your favorite filmmakers, directors?
Oh, man, that's so tough. But
Quentin Tarantino.
I love Tarantino. I love Tarantino for a plethora of reasons.
He's crazy. I love him.
He's nuts.
He really is.
But his dialogue is incredible.
Oh.
He writes dialogue like nobody's business. But Hitchcock, Billy Wilder, Spielberg, they're my grandmaster top 3.
Who's the guy? I always get his name. Shyamalan?
M. Night Shyamalan?
Yeah. His stuff's pretty
He's
dark.
He's interesting.
Yeah. Like you really, you go to movies like Judy is out right now, the Judy Garland story, or the, Elton John. You don't really think of the directors. There are certain movies that are associated with that person as a director.
Oh, yeah.
Because of who they are and how they perceive things. George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, E.T.
Yep.
I was in high school when that came out. I'm that old. I think everybody in that movie's dead now. Poltergeist, all those different things. They have a certain way of doing things, like back in the day. John Ford was hugely popular. Cecil B. DeMille.
Oh, DeMille.
Things that they did back then, which were at the height of, technology in those days.
Oh, for sure.
The modern way of doing things. And now you look back and you go, what the hell are they thinking?
Well, and stuff that was revolutionized. Like,
totally.
Stanley Kubrick revolutionized, like, Steadicams and things like that everybody doesn't even think about anymore.
Right.
So it's just, The Shining has these one-take shots that travel through this whole hotel. It's like, nobody did that before.
I've been to that hotel in Colorado.
The Stanley?
Which is also where Dumb and Dumber was filmed,
Yep.
which is kind of strange to me. One of the greatest horror films of all time and one of the dumbest films of all time. Both on my favorites list, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
So, it's so funny. So who is your favorite? Do you have a favorite? Or is it by genre?
It more is dependent on the movie than the filmmaker to me.
Sure.
Because every filmmaker can have an amazing movie and then a total flop.
But can you look at a movie and know who created that film?
And that's the thing, is it's you've got people like Tarantino, who you watch a Tarantino movie and it is, from the dialogue to the shot composition to everything, it's so a Tarantino movie. And then you've got directors who are switch knives that are like, oh, who made this? Didn't he do like a goofy comedy yesterday? I know he's doing this like dark horror movie. And then, so I like directors that have a style, but like a Hitchcock, like he did some of the most amazing movies, but people don't realize he did comedies. He did everything.
But he was not really known for that. He was known for his thrillers, you know, and cameo appearances.
Yep.
Cameo like Stan Lee.
Yep. Like Stan Lee.
Who really didn't direct any of the films, just made money from walking through the film, you know. But yeah.
Hey, it's good work if you can get it.
Amen to that. Santa versus the devil.
Santa versus the devil.
So I don't even know. I don't even know where this film came from.
Mexico.
We were talking about, we were sitting at the DeFiore Center laughing about some of these. I wouldn't even call it a B movie.
It's a F movie.
Yeah.
It's so low on the totem pole.
And all of a sudden we're on YouTube looking at, or whatever we were on, I don't know.
Yeah, you can find it on YouTube.
A little girl wants to go see Santa, and she has the devil telling her to steal something. And Santa comes out of nowhere and saves the day. It was...
The whole thing was done by a Mexican production with a Mexican cast, and Mexican Santa is one of the greatest characters of all time.
So bad it's good.
Oh, it's so bad.
Is there a movie? Is there a movie that you've watched that you go, this is like one of the worst things ever, but you absolutely love it? For me, it's Rocky Horror Picture Show.
I said there are like 8 million movies like that for me. Like, being a horror fan, like, I am such a fan of everything that is bad.
Look, we are out of time. Look how fast that went. Real quick, what's your website?
tsimiondoose.weebly.com.
Taylor Doose. We're going to see you someday at the Academy Awards. Just remember us when you make it that big, buddy.
All right, I'll be back.
Taylor Doose, you the man. Thanks for listening in to Startup Nation. We'll see you next week, everybody. Peace out.
Thanks for listening to Startup Nation with Ed Tracey. For video and or audio of the show, go to YouTube or Facebook, Podbean or Spotify, and search Radio St. George. Or go to radiostgeorge.com. We invite you back next Tuesday at 3 o'clock for another edition of Startup Nation on Radio St. George 100.3 FM.